Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show that I'm definitely going to enjoy producing here with the team. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel now. As you guys know, free agency began yesterday, and there was an absolute whirlwind of moves that were made. So many, and I'm not going to be talking about them because I don't have the strength to talk about all of those different signings that took place yesterday, and I don't think it's interesting, to be honest with you. It wasn't any major moves. But one of the bigger moves yesterday surrounded Kyrie Irving. Now, Kyrie Irving, a report came out by Chris Haynes that said he was going to go speak to the Phoenix Suns. And during the live that we produced, I said that was something that absolutely made no sense. I said it looked absolutely weak. And I said during that live, I said the only thing that could be the only thing that would make sense is that this is just a smoke screen. And they're doing it to gain leverage with the current team that he's with. And it turns out that's exactly what it was. And he actually got offered a contract. He agreed to a new contract with the Dallas Mavericks, so he'd be returning to the Mavs. But then what happened? There's another guy out there, and that person is James Harden, right? And James Harden has been one of the most troublesome NBA players over the last few years. What are we talking about? James Harden, I believe now, is most likely going to be on his 4th team in 3 years or his 5th team in 4 years. Some crazy number like that. But what a lot of us forget is that James Harden at one point was a league MVP. He was a guy leading the league in scoring. He was one of the most talented point guards in the NBA. But James Harden had a history of quitting. And not only would he quit, it seemed like whenever he would lose, he would give absolutely two you-know-whats about losing. You would see James Harden lose a big playoff game, and then that same night you see him at the club, which to me is unbelievable. Talk about detaching yourself. Talk about compartmentalization. That is incredible. It's absolutely incredible how he used to do that. So some new reports came out that James Harden was looking for a big contract with the Philadelphia 76ers, and he was going to opt out in hopes that they were going to offer him a long-term contract. And then he found out that these guys were not going to offer him a long-term contract. And therefore he said, okay, I'm going to opt in and I want you guys to trade me. Well, when Chris Broussard caught a whiff of that news from The Odd Couple, he absolutely went off on James Harden and players like James Harden that run from difficult basketball situations. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Chris Broussard said during his rant, because it was absolutely entertaining, but 100% on the money. And then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to what Chris Broussard had to say here.
And here's what we talked earlier in the show, Martin, because the reports are that the Clippers and the Knicks are teams that are expected to engage the Sixers on talks for James Harden. The Knicks, what are you doing? Just if you call Philadelphia, ask them about Embiid, not Harden. All right. But the Clippers is where I think he'll end up. But I want to look at this from a different angle. And that angle is James Harden. And look, Martin, James Harden, if it was just about regular season play, like if there were no playoffs, it was just the regular season, you would have a hard time. It'd be only a small number of players that you would say were better than James Harden in history.
Sure.
The boy is bad in the regular season. I mean, scoring, dishing, he's nasty.
I mean, James Harden was the originator of the 40-point month. The 30-point, like not originator, I shouldn't say, but this generation's, right? Like the guy who was going and having 30 points for an entire month, right? Like he was scoring 30 points a game.
He's
like 40 points a game in a month. You know what I'm saying? A 30-day period.
Had a few years where he averaged 30
that's what
plus points.
Yeah, of my generation, I should say.
Yeah,
not he didn't start it, but.
Yeah, so he is an awesome player. James Harden is a runner. I understood Houston. Now the way you ran wasn't right. Just tanking on a team. You didn't just sit out. You didn't just demand a trade and wait for him to trade you. You demanded the trade, and then when you saw that they were twiddling their thumbs, you just started playing really bad basketball for your level, right? So he quit on the Rockets. And then he goes to the Brooklyn Nets And look, I get it. I mean, Kyrie was exasperating, and that's Kyrie's choice. I have family members that didn't get vaccinated, so I'm not like ripping him for that. But it hurts your basketball team. There's no doubt about that. And James Harden was upset about that, but he ran. I mean, heck, Martin, he still had KD. It wasn't like without Kyrie, they were junk. He still had Kevin Durant, but he ran. And now this is what I don't understand. Okay, you already are on a team that has a chance to win a championship. Am I picking them if he were to stay? No. Is anybody picking them? Not likely, but a lot of it's because of Harden. Most of it's because of Harden. Now, Embiid's not blameless. He has not shown up like he should in the playoffs either. But if Harden would be Harden in the playoffs, if regular season James would show up in the playoffs, then they could win a championship. And so you're running again rather than stick it out, rather than fight. You know what's on my TV, and I don't hear it, but it's on The Last Dance.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, one reason people love him, Muhammad Ali, the GOAT in boxing in many people's eyes. One reason people love him is because when the going got tough, they were at their best. Ali wasn't supposed to be George Foreman, but he rose to the occasion. Michael Jordan wasn't supposed to be able to create a dynasty as a two-guard, but he rose to the occasion. When Detroit was beating him up, you know this, you're from there. He rose to the occasion. James Harden is running. What? You're running from Joel freaking Embiid. What more do you need? Martin, if I was a star point guard, you know what I would want more than anything else? A great big man.
Sure.
And you've got one of the greatest big men in the league of this era. And you got quality role players. Why are you looking for another situation?
So you heard what Chris Broussard had to say. First of all, I 100% concur. I 100% concur. And I don't think this is just a James Harden thing, man. I think that, I don't know if it's a representation of the times that we live in, where it's like this instant gratification world we live in, where if something is not happening at that moment, then we need to change. Now, I don't think it's fair to just put it on James Harden, however. I don't think it's fair to do that. You know why? Because this has become commonplace for some NBA teams. Now NBA teams are firing head coaches at a drop of a hat. If they don't have 1 year or 2 successful seasons, they're firing him. I'll give you guys an example of it. Frank Vogel. You forgot about Frank Vogel? You know, the guy that helped coach the Lakers to the 2020 championship? That Frank Vogel? Yeah, they fired him. And some people say that, oh, you know, he wasn't getting through to the team. So how did he get through to them before? They fired Frank Vogel because they weren't seeing the results that they got. And they still haven't gotten those results that they were searching for. Another coach that got fired was Mike Budenholzer, but I believe he deserved to get fired, not because he's not because some of the stuff he was doing in terms of basketball execution was just absolutely absurd. But now we live in a time period where if things don't happen right now, we need to make a drastic change right now. I think we also live in a time period where now it's like, this is a team where this is the era where we all need to team up. This is the era where we all need to team up. And then you have guys like Damian Lillard that look like weirdos because they're like, nah, I don't want to go join you. I want to see if I can figure this thing out. And he looks like a weirdo. Now, here's the reason why guys like that, the Damian Lillards, they lose out because he's playing in a league where other guys are not operating under that same mindset. Chris Broussard brought up Michael Jordan. But the way Jordan felt was the way a lot of those stars felt back in the day. They weren't interested in hopping all over the team. No, they were just going to stay on their team and then try to figure it out. And if they have an opportunity, maybe after they didn't have the power that some of these players have today. So if a guy like Damian Lillard played in that era, you know, it would be commonplace. But now it's like, if you're not moving and going to go try to join some other team, some super team, then it's like, oh, you know, you're never going to have a chance, right? And basically Damian Lillard, I believe, needs to realize that when you're around wolves, act like wolves. When in Rome, behave like the Romans. And you're trying to behave like an angel around a bunch of wolves. You gotta change up your mindset. I mean, in the case of Damian Lillard, but he seems like he's not going to. But this whole thing of, oh, let me join you, and then, yo, we're going to join again. Like, yo, I don't know. Some people like it, but for me, man, I just think it's corny. And I think every single point that Chris Broussard made about James Harden was 100% on the money. So what I want to know from you guys, what do you think about what Chris Broussard had to say? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments. We catch you guys on the next show.